Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Max with BuzzTox here. It's been a long time since I did a live stream to the point where I don't even know how to do it anymore. As I can see in the chat, nobody showed up yet, so this could be a lot of fun. I got to be honest with you, I haven't prepared anything. I was kind of just hoping that people would be in the chat asking me questions, and then I can kind of roll off that. But if nobody showed up, then this could be a disaster. I might not even know. There's only so long I can talk by myself, right? Oh, sweet. Okay, we got Joseph. All right, Joseph, you and we can hold the conversation for an hour. Let's hope. I'll just quickly talk about my channel. I know for my video consistency hasn't been at the level that I would want. That's because I've been working a full-time job, and it's a lot to balance. All I can tell you is like the plans that I have for Game of Thrones season 8 and the coverage that I'm going to do. And in terms of coverage, I'm going to be consistent with what I've been doing since season 6. And that starts this week. This week, I'm going to be launching a couple videos. I have a video in the works how the Night King will be defeated. I have another video how Cersei will be defeated. I also have how Game of Thrones will end video coming back, hopefully all before Game of Thrones Season 8 airs. And then when Game of Thrones Season 8 airs, I want to start introducing people back into the live stream format. So basically the way it's going to look is a Game of Thrones Season 8 episode will drop. Right after that night, I will have a reaction and review video where I'm going to give my initial thoughts. I'm going to do a review. And then after that, probably a couple days after, I will do a complete breakdown where I'm going to go scene by scene throughout the whole episode. Those videos are usually a bit longer, and I detail every single aspect of the show. And then a third video is kind of a prediction video, what to expect next for the next episode, which is also a good video. And then I would like to do live streams. Every Monday, I'd like to do a consistent live stream right after a Game of Thrones episode. We would do a live stream, and I kind of want to get used to that format. And then if there's any other videos that I want to make, in terms of if there's like a concept in an episode that I want to discuss, I would make a bonus video on that. And that will be kind of the coverage of Game of Thrones Season 8 on this channel, which is, I'm going to be worked to the bone for about a month and a half, which is totally fine. And Matt Green's in the chat, and BW, what's going on, guys? Matt says that he was looking forward to those prediction videos. In terms of those, I can talk about what I think will happen. I have episode 5 pretty much written, or a chunk of it written. I know the direction of where I want to go with the show or what I want to do with it. But it was a very daunting task, I realized. And it kind of feeds into a lot of the videos I make where I don't want to just kind of throw a video out there. I want to write it. I want to kind of put some soul into it and actually have it worth people's while and have it, and in terms of the prediction videos, it would take me hours, like hours upon hours. Like I worked hard, and it would take me so long just to write an episode because everything has to connect. Everything has to have a purpose. And then in doing that, it makes me question things that I've written before and go back and things like that. And in terms of the predictions, there's one thing that I did with those predictions that I wish I didn't do. And I didn't make the decision based on me thinking that would happen. It was a decision because I thought that kind of would happen, or the showrunners were hinting at it. And that's Daenerys having a child. I never thought she would have a child. I never wanted her to have a kid. I didn't think it worked with the story. But in season 7, it seemed like Dan and Dave were really kind of beating us over the head with the idea that she would be pregnant. So I kind of jumped in on that with the predictions, even though I don't think that would happen. And with that, there's some plot points that I'm trying to flesh out in episode 5 and episode 6 breakdown. But pretty much, and I'm sure we'll flesh through some of the ideas here, but I have some very key ideas that I feel like need to happen in Game of Thrones and that need to happen in this season. And it all stems from myth and lore and the historical past of the show and kind of character arcs that I think we need to see. And that's what I kind of fed into all my predictions and what I was kind of hoping would unfold over the last 2 episodes. So hopefully I'll have those out. I hinted at a lot of key concepts that I want to explore. And I hope it's accurate. I'm just worried. The one thing I am worried about with this show in particular compared to my predictions is, and I want to see if this is your, concerns too. But my main issue is I don't want them to make Cersei the main villain, much like the Night King, Cersei's been a prevalent character or villain throughout the show. And the last thing I want is for Dan and Dave to do kind of a plot twist and make the Night King kind of a side piece to Cersei. I don't want them to defeat the Night King and then go south and face off Cersei. I want Cersei to be a hindrance to defeating the Night King, but the Night King needs to be the main priority. And a couple issues that feed into that is, you know, how Bran always goes back and sees not really how to defeat the Night King. He goes back to see how Jon is eligible to sit the throne, which feeds into like, why does that matter? And that's why I was irritated in season 7, because for me, why is Bran always going back and seeing Jon be eligible for king? Why isn't he looking at how to defeat the Night King or who's going to defeat the Night King? But actually, I do have some predictions that I'll touch on, and probably in this video and some predictions as well. But I think the person who is going to be king at the end of the show is going to have a huge hand in how the Night King is defeated. And I obviously have a couple of my ideas on how that's going to happen, and I really want to hear what you guys think. But going on to the chat right now, oh my gosh, geez, it's blowing up. My goodness. Okay, so Joseph says that he's looking forward to you breaking down the battle for Winterfell. You know what? I think I'm going to do a video on that where I'm going to break down everything. Like, I want to do a prediction video on the battle for Winterfell, breaking down every single piece on how I would do it. Honestly, check out my episode 3 prediction video. I break down how I would want it to happen, but I'm probably going to make a prediction video based on the trailers that we've seen and how I think the structure of the battle is going to go. And we can talk about that later for sure. You guys ask away and I'll kind of lay out what I think is going to happen. But there's two, like the one question I have is it just going to be the Night King that's involved in the Winterfell, or is it also going to be the Golden Company and Cersei involved? I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Music makes, music makes life better. There's no way Game of Thrones can kill off Jon Snow. Tell me you agree. Honestly, it's hit and miss. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think Jon is like protected. I just think this story, he is my favorite character. So I don't want to sit here as like a Jon Snow lover, but like, I honestly feel like this show, the whole arc of it is based on Jon. It's the Song of Ice and Fire. And I think there's symbolism that hints throughout the whole show that hints at that. Like, I think Daenerys is a very important character, but she doesn't have the duality that Jon has. The whole show is about the balancing act of ice and fire, bringing balance and peace between the two. And that's what makes it a song, right? And I think that's what makes Jon so special. And that's what makes his heritage so special. And that's what makes his arc so special, because his whole, every part that he is in, his job is to bring people together. It's to bring the wildlings and the Night's Watch together to fight the common enemy. It's to bring Cersei and Daenerys together to fight the common enemy. That's Jon's role. And Jon dying, if he did die in the show, it would be for a very significant reason. If he were to die in the show, it would be him sacrificing himself to the Night King, because it would be us realizing that he was the target all along, or he's meant to take the mantle. And I can flesh that out even further, but the reason why I think that's possible is just looking at the history and lore of Game of Thrones, and I can dive into that later. But yeah, that's the big thing. I think Jon is meant for more than that. And if he dies, then so be it. I think that he's actually the prince who was promised, and that's the debate between him and Daenerys. And I think the important thing there too is that the prince, that means just gender neutral. It could mean both. And that feeds into the Valonqar, which the person who kills Cersei, that is gender neutral as well. So there's a lot of different avenues for these prophecies. But I think looking at it and Jon being actually ice and fire, I think that's his role. And I think if we were to see a tragic death, I think it would be Daenerys. And I think if you just look at like the concluding arc of her experience, and the same goes for Arya, I think you'd see she's kind of come full circle. Daenerys was always the conqueror. And I think Jon is the one who's meant to take it over the line. And we see that in Melisandre prophecies. We see that in a lot of different information. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I just think the most likely one to die out of the two heroes of the show would be Daenerys, because I think that she's meant to have, that tragic story. But, we'll see. Who knows? Carrie Neve says, hello. Hey, what's going on? Fernandez T, I missed you, buddy. Haven't seen you in forever. Woot, BuzzTox last season coming up. Can't wait. Dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that donation. Really appreciate it. 55 Bueller, missed my Canadian dude. That's right, buddy. Good to see you too. Francesco James, thank you so much for the donation. $5. That's incredible. Love your prediction videos. Thank you so much. I guess I need to be working on those, eh? A little slower. Yeah, as I was saying earlier, those prediction videos, they're the death of me. I swear to God, there's so much work, and I'll dive in. I can dive into what I'm thinking in the live stream here today, so you can get a taste of what I was thinking. But it was such an undertaking. Like every video I do, the writing aspect of it is the hardest thing I do, because honestly, my process, I don't do any internet searches. I don't do any research. I don't do anything like that. Actually, well, I shouldn't say that. In terms of research, I'll go on to, like, I'll read about the long night or things like that, right? But other than that, like, all my predictions, really, I just sit there and I think, and I just try and think and put pieces together, and that's how I operate. And it takes me a long time to get these videos out, and sometimes it's to my detriment, and it's hard to get those predictions going, because I wanted to roll them out, and I was rolling out these ideas, and I was writing them scene by scene, and writing scene by scene to go to a common goal, it's very hard to do, and I've realized that doing that. And I have episode 5 pretty much written, so hopefully, man, it's an undertaking, but maybe I could get it done before then. Steve D, hey Buzzy, are you still planning on finishing your watch through breakdowns of the older episodes? Love them. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, so in terms of those, like I said, I've been working. I've been very busy. Come August, I think I'm going to shift out of that and do something more entrepreneurial. So I'll have more time to do stuff like that. But I love the idea of it. But jumping back into it, since we're going into season 8, if I went back and visited all the episodes again, Game of Thrones would be done. Which kind of negates the whole reason why I went back to start those episode rewatches, because the whole point of them was to look back and see what we can gather to predict the end of the show. Unless you guys just want to watch the show with me and watch me review them, then we can do that for sure. But the whole point for me to really jump in and start reviewing those shows was to see if there was any commonalities that we can find to predict the end of the show. But yeah, good idea. I may get back into that. Anything digital says, I have heard many times now that Tyrion will put on trial and killed. This has been in the last 6 months or so. People have been predicting this. I disagree with that. To be honest with you, I've never heard that, and maybe there's some valid points to it. But I feel the same way about. I don't agree. I just think that Tyrion's been through that. He's been on trial. I don't know what he'd be on trial for. He's protected by Daenerys. He's under Daenerys. I don't see any reason why Daenerys would put him in that position. Unless he was captured by Cersei, which there wouldn't be a trial. So I don't see that as true. If I see anybody who would be put on trial and killed, wouldn't be Tyrion, it would be Varys. Tyrion has proven himself to be fully in Daenerys's camp, and I think that he is. He wants her best interest at heart. Varys, however, I've voiced my opinion. I don't know if he does, and I think he's proven that he hasn't. In season 1, he wanted to put a Targaryen in charge. And what that meant was he picked Viserys, and him and Illyrio conspired to get him an army, conspired to get him on the throne. And that didn't work out. And now he's serving Daenerys. And I think over the past, Varys has proven that he does what is right for the realm, and he serves who is right for the realm. And, the reason why that's a big deal is because Daenerys is right now what's right for the realm. She is perfect. She's freed slaves from the slavers in Marine. She has done a lot in Essos, a lot of good, and now she's coming to take back the seat, the throne to herself, right? But I think Jon's heritage is going to play a big role. I think Jon has proven that he's given Daenerys advice on not burning King's Landing to the ground. He was raised by the Honorable Ned Stark, who Varys got to know and learn about in season 1. And he's going to be the heir. He's the actual legitimate heir to the throne to Rhaegar Targaryen. And Rhaegar was beloved by everyone. So as much as good of a candidate Daenerys is, Jon on paper is just a bit better. And and in this universe, a part of it has to do with him being a man, unfortunately. And another part has to do with his lineage, his heritage. And just who he is, how he was raised by Ned. And I think Varys, if he found out that was the case, he may lean towards him being a legitimate heir rather than Daenerys. And that's why I think, if anything, Varys would be trialed and killed, because he would go against Daenerys and Jon's wishes and conspire to put Jon on the throne. So I think that would be the one issue in terms of politics that we could find with Varys. But, we'll see what happens. Anything Digital again says, where are they getting this idea? It was said that it would want a vineyard and then the Imp's Delight. Oh, where are they getting this idea? It was said that he would want a vineyard and make a Imp's Delight. Yeah, so that was something that he talked about in the show that he always wanted, Tyrion being put on trial, I don't know. But in terms of what Tyrion wanted, was his dream was to open up his own winery called the Imp's Delight, and that would be something that he would do, right? And I think that would be a great send-off for Tyrion. I don't know how. I think Tyrion will survive through, and I think Tyrion's going to be one of those people who rebuilds this world right after the events of the White Walkers. And I think he might be able to make his Imp's Delight. I think that would be great. But in terms of his role in season 8, I hope he has more of a role than just counseling Daenerys and Jon. Tyrion is a very important character, and I want him to have a little bit more of an impact than what he had in season 7. So I hope we get to see that from Tyrion. Lisa Michelle, can't wait for the premiere. I'm sure you meant to say. Yeah, I'm pumped. Yeah, we're getting all the episodes are probably 60, 70, 80 minutes long. So we're in for a treat. I just hope that they don't rush it. And I hope that we get a lot of meaning from it. Season 6 was my favorite season ever. I felt like every scene had a purpose. There was a lot of great twists that made sense in the context of the plot. I felt like season 7, however, was I enjoyed it, but I felt like it was kind of filler to try and get them to a place where they needed to be, and it wasn't founded in logic. Yeah, I feel like some things, I feel like it being a shorter season, I felt like it kind of trekked along slower. So I hope this season has more of a pace, and I hope that it moves with purpose. I hope every move that they make makes sense. And I hope it's set up plot-wise properly. I feel like season 7 sometimes kind of fluctuated with that. Nature Girl. He will be king the night. He will sacrifice himself as Azor Ahai to become the next Night King. Yeah, that's a possibility. So I'm sure she's talking about Jon there, sacrificing himself to be the next Night King. I'm going to start reading off these questions here, but I'll get more into that on what I think about Jon being sacrificed. I like the idea of it, but I don't know how true it is, just because I always base what's going to happen in this show based on the context of the past and what happened in the fight for the Dawn. And I think we can actually get a lot of answers on what happened there. BW asks, what do you think the odds are of the Night King being killed off during the battle for Winterfell instead of making it to the series conclusion? I would be pissed. I would not be happy if that was the case. This show started with the members of the Night's Watch going over the wall and having a conflict with White Walkers. And they threw a skull, and you see a symbol as a warning that they're coming. This whole show has had an underlying presence of the White Walkers coming. And the show has finally taken that role. And this show is beyond a Game of Thrones now. This show is a Song of Ice and Fire. And that's what the title of the books are, because it is about the Song of Ice and Fire. It's not just about the Game of Thrones. And I think they need to deliver that, because if you kill the Night King in episode 3, it just crumbles everything that they were setting up. So I hope that they don't. I don't think they won't, to me, honestly. It doesn't make sense. I think the Night King is going to go there and decimate Winterfell. And I think he's going to destroy it. And I think everyone's going to have to retreat. And that's going to create conflict, because Cersei's there waiting for them, right? So they have to choose which one's which ones are our best chance of survival. And maybe it's trying to negotiate with Cersei again. Maybe it's trying to just go fight off Cersei. But the problem is that the more that they fight Cersei, the more dead that they add to the Night King's army, right? So it creates quite a conflict. What I'm hoping is that they deal with Cersei and then they have to handle the Night King. I'm hoping that I'm going to release a video on how they're going to deal with Cersei and what I think is going to happen. But I think one of the key things is that Cersei rules by emotion. And I think she's obviously going to make some decisions that are out of hate and out of just anger. And it will put her in a vulnerable position. I have a feeling she's going to send her Golden Company out. And I think it's going to give Jon and Daenerys a chance to try and win them over. whether they're going to negotiate a way to fix the contract, or we're witnessing a point in history where we see the Golden Company finally break their contract, which I think would be great. And I think once they get the Golden Company, they're gonna go to Cersei, and I think maybe they'll send Jaime Lannister to go parlay with her, and he'll end up killing her and fulfilling the vision of the Valonqar, right? And the Red Keep could blow up because of the wildfire that's underneath, right? And it feeds this plot, and then King's Landing's in shambles, and then that would be where they have the last stand. King's Landing would be a great spot where you have to finally fight off the Night King. And we know that it has significance because we've seen Daenerys go to King's Landing. The roof is all blown to hell, and she's going up to the throne. She's about to touch it, and she doesn't. And I think that kind of fulfills how it's going to end. It's going to end at King's Landing. Snow sits the throne, and Daenerys, the seat is just out of her reach. And I think that's what we're going to see in the end of the show. And I hope it ends with the Night King. Lisa Michelle. Will Jon Snow become the Night King? Okay, well, I might as well answer it. I don't think so. Because in the past, we've seen the Night King be created. He had dragon glass plunged into his heart by the children, right? I think Jon is a very key piece, though. There's a lot. I don't even know where to begin with this because there's so much information. But I always go back to, first of all, let's look at the Melisandre prophecies, right? Everything that she said to Stannis is true. She's told Stannis to spare Davos's life because he's needed. He's needed to get and collect your armies. This happened in season 3. Well, guess what happened? Stannis died. She didn't see Davos helping Stannis. She saw Davos helping Jon. And Davos was the one who helped put Jon in his place as King of the North. So that's why she kept Davos alive. She had multiple visions and predictions on Jon Snow's role, how she sees herself in the battlements of Winterfell. She sees, all of these things that really show who Jon is. But then she lays down some predictions that shed light on what could happen with Jon. He will be king, but in doing so, he'll lose everything. He'll betray the men serving him. He'll betray the person he loves. He'll betray his family. He'll betray everything he held dear. And I think that's Jon's tragic end or story, is that Jon is such a noble character, but in order to defeat the Night King, he has to sacrifice everything. And that could be him sacrificing himself as the Night King, which I don't think for the fight for the Dawn and all that, it doesn't really make sense. But it makes sense that he's something that the Night King would want, because he is fire and ice. But I think Jon, if that doesn't happen, if he doesn't go north with the Night King, and that's a part of the deal, then he'll pick up the pieces as king, because he kind of lost everything. And in terms of what I think will happen with the Night King, I don't know. It could be Jon, but the War for the Dawn, the way I'm spinning in circles right now. But what I see right now is the Night King's come south twice. He's come south this time, and he's come south during the fight for the Dawn. So why those 2 times? It doesn't make sense. Why would he? Why that? Why then? Why didn't he choose another time? And you have to look at the commonalities. And in terms of people say the Night King's coming for Bran. I don't think so. I think he's going after Bran because there's certain similarities that they have, and they have certain abilities that are the same. But a 3-eyed raven, I don't think was present during the fight for the Dawn. And I think the Night King clearly is after more than that. And they say in the past, the Night King was pushed back, and they Children of the Forest and all them, they fought the Night King back, and he went beyond the wall and they won, right? I think that's not true. And I think that's the myth of Azor Ahai. And I touch on that in my video. Check out the myth of Azor Ahai. But basically what it means is Jon is so important because he is ice and fire. And I think that leads into Azor Ahai. He tempered his wife. He tempered his sword in stone, in a lion, and then in his wife, Nissa, and pulled a flaming sword of fire. And that was the sword that fought back the Night King. We've seen the Night King. We know that it's impossible for them to be fought back. That's why I think the flaming sword could be a Targaryen child. and it feeds into the symbols that we see. The Night King has all these spiral symbols, and you can kind of see that imposed on the dragons of Targaryen lore. So I think the Night King almost is looking for his counterbalance. But in terms of what form that will take, I honestly don't know. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I just feel like whatever Jon's role is, I know he is the key to defeating the Night King. He's the person that Jon always sees. He's the person that Melisandre always goes to. And I think he is the key role to defeating the Night King. So we'll see what happens there. Anything digital. What did Tyrion agree to get Cersei to come back out in the pit? My theory is he traded his life, maybe. Yeah, I thought that was so weirdly handled. And honestly, I haven't brushed myself up on that season in a while. Yeah, he's in there. He's talking to her. The way I took it was Cersei finally saw it hurt. She saw it as valuable for her to side with Tyrion and Daenerys, or to lie about it, right? She saw it as a benefit because they would go north expecting her to come, and that's where she would prepare to fight, right? I just thought all in all that was kind of poorly handled. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he really traded anything per se, unless they're going to reveal something to us. But I think she just saw it as appropriate for her to do it because it would play out in her benefit. Harley Hughes. Oh my goodness. Hey man, watching your Northern Ireland, watching from Northern Ireland. What's going on, buddy? Love your Westworld vids. Also, the show was filmed 10 minutes away from my flipping house. Loads of different locations all around Belfast. Wow, that's incredible. I want to go traveling there because I really want to see, you know, all the filming that they did there in Croatia. Oh, that'd be incredible. I would love to do that. 5-5 Bueller. Good having you back, man. Watch you constantly during season 7. Oh, thanks. Well, I'm going to make sure that you have a lot of stuff to watch during season 8. I'll do everything I can. We'll have like 4 videos on every week, so it'll be good. Leon Martin, do you think we'll be seeing more Ghost? I think they announced that we are. I think they had Ghost in season 7, but they decided to cut him out. Probably just because it's expensive and it didn't make sense for the story. I don't know. I'm kind of annoyed that they kind of cut him out because I think Ghost and Jon's relationship could play a really significant role to the story. It's like Daenerys and her dragons, right? You wouldn't cut out the dragons, so why would you cut out the direwolf? It's the two opposites of the spectrum, ice and fire. I think it was a big mistake that they did that because as they were following Daenerys' relationship with her dragons, you could have followed Jon with Ghost, right? I think we'll see him, though. I think they're going to make an effort to put him in because they know that fans want him. And I think Ghost plays a role in George R.R. Martin's ending of the plot, right? And I think honestly, I think they're just going to shoehorn Ghost back in to tell the finish touches of George R.R. Martin's story. So I think we're going to see him. We might see him at the Battle for Winterfell, and who knows what other role he's going to play. Maybe he'll just die again like every other direwolf, or maybe he's going to play another significant role. Nature Girl. Ygritte told Jon his name was an evil name and never told him why. I think it is because they never give the side of the wildlings. The wildlings know things. Oh, Ygritte. Okay, Ygritte told Jon that his name was an evil name. Honestly, I don't necessarily remember that. Was she talking about his last name or his first name? Because I think a lot of that's up for interpretation. Honestly, I can't really say much to that because I don't remember it. Unfortunately, usually I remember a lot about the shows, but that part I don't. But sure, yeah, the wildlings know things. They're over the wall. They have a different perspective. And I made a video, Jon Snow is Azor Ahai, and the whole basis is why Jon Snow's character is special, and it's only because of perspective. His whole journey has been getting perspective of different sides and bringing people together. And that's his whole role. It is the journey of perspective. And I was hoping that Jon would gather perspective of the Night King side and he would be able to bring those together. But what it's looking like now is he's bringing everyone together to fight them off. And we'll kind of see how that plays out. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Phyllis Wright. Oh, hey, what's going on? Phyllis Wright says, welcome back. I missed you so much. Thank you so much. Missed you too. Matt Green. Says, have you watched any recent James of Thrones prediction videos? They're pretty interesting, even if they don't come true. He is a great storyteller, worth a watch either way. I honestly, I don't know who he is. I've never heard of him before. I'm not much of a Game of Thrones watcher in terms of prediction videos. I kind of just stick to my stuff, and I don't want to get. And it's not because I'm, for any particular reason. It's really just because I don't want to kind of mesh my creative process. I don't want to watch anybody's stuff and kind of think on of what I think. I kind of handle all my videos the same, and the same goes with Westworld. Is I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and we'll see kind of what happens. And yeah, so all I can say is, I'd love to check out his stuff, see what he thinks. But in terms of my process, I don't really watch anyone's stuff. I just I get all my inspiration from looking at the past seasons, and I find common threads, and I try and just figure out what's going to happen. Virginia V. Moore, Q&A. Do you think that the God's Eye will play a role in the new season? I hope so. It was in my predictions. And the reason why I think it could play an important role is because, yeah, it's basically the center of everything. It has all the weirwood trees. I think it could give Bran more power, right? And I think that speaks to why it's called the God's Eye, right? As soon as you go there, you are like a god. And that's why I think that Bran's full journey is to make it to the God's Eye. And that is him becoming who he was meant to be. And it's not just the three-eyed raven, it is God. Bran is not just the three-eyed raven, he's also the old gods. He is also the seven, the light of the seven, or oh God, you know what I mean? All the different religions would be Bran, and he's just that man under the tree who kind of takes everything under the God's Eye, right? And I think that would be amazing, because it's perfectly protected by water from the Night King. It seems like he was almost just put there. And it has a historical backing too, where the children and the Andals came together to try and fight and defeat the Night King. So I think it has a lot of historical significance, and I think there's a reason for it, because that was one of the key places where they were able to defeat the Night King, or whatever, right? And that feeds into one prediction that I always wanted to happen. I remember around, people are always saying like, "Oh, Bran's supposed to become the Night King," and that people had all these opinions on it. And to me, I heard it and I was like, "Yeah, right." But then I started thinking about it, and I think they do have some commonalities, and I think it would be a really nice way to defeat the Night King. And this kind of feeds into one of my predictions on what I was thinking about how the Night King would be defeated. But how do you defeat the Night King? He is so strong, and he has so much potential. So I think there's only one way you could really beat him. I think you could put Jon or Daenerys or some character in a form of in trouble. And Bran, we've seen it before. He's gone back in the past. He's manipulated the past. He really messed up Hodor, right? And I think what he could do is, maybe if he goes in the God's Eye, he's able to go back. Maybe he wargs into the Night King when he's being converted. The children still don't know how he ended up becoming the way he did, how he ended up becoming a person of ice and an enemy representing death. And maybe it's because Bran warged into him. And we find out that Bran is actually a part of the Night King. The reason why he resurrects the dead and their eyes turn blue, it's not because he's just resurrecting them and he has some kind of special magic. He's warging into them. He can warg into the dead. Maybe there's a reason he has a fascination with Jon, we might find out. It's because Jon is his brother and his latest memory, and Bran's constant cycle was to always go back to Jon. So I could create a lot of weird intricacies there, but then it becomes simple. The way you defeat the Night King is to maybe kill Bran, and it eliminates the Night King's abilities. But then that's a giant time traveling hole where you're like, well, why was the Night King like that before Bran was born? And it brings in a lot of questions, right? That you just can't really answer. So I'm not sure. It opens a big rabbit hole, right? But there's a lot of different aspects that you can look at. Where are we here? Jake from State Farm, your beard is looking good. You have no idea how much that means to me. Thank you so much. Cersei must die. Virginia V. Moore, Cersei must die. I agree. And she needs to have like a proper send off. I think she needs. I'm one of those people. Her prophecy was she dies by the Valonqar, and Valonqar could be gender neutral. You could say it's Arya. You could say it's Daenerys because she's a little sister. Arya's a little sister. You could say it's Tyrion or Jaime because they're both the younger brother of Cersei. But I think I think Jaime has to be the one to kill Cersei. I think it has to happen. Their relationship was the foundation of the first episode of the show, and it stretched through this whole show. And I think to kind of wrap up Jaime's character, it would be perfect if he ended up killing Cersei. I think it would be amazing because it speaks to Jaime's whole character. On the outside, he's this kind of hardened asshole type of character, and he always got ragged on being the Kingslayer, but he did what was right. And I think this situation is almost like completing his arc because this is the one person that he's always loved. And he has to, he just eliminates that out of his mind, and he does what he thinks is right. And he kills Cersei because she is going against the living, and he does what he has to do to end that arc. And I think that would be an amazing kind of wrap for them. I would love to see Jaime kill Cersei and then maybe die, whether it's through Daenerys's wildfire or Daenerys's Dragonfire or the Wildfire when they're in the Red Keep or something. I just think that would be a really good end to Daenerys. Phyllis Wright. I've watched your videos on Bran and Jon so many times, it's sad. Yeah, I'm really proud of those videos. I spent a long time writing them. I really like them. A lot of videos I like too. I like the 3 Heads of the Dragon video. My Myth of Azor Ahai video is good. But the Jon video is probably one of my favorites because that's how I always felt about the character, and I always really liked the character. And it's really just about comparing his arc to what he's meant to do, and that's just it's the active perspective, understanding perspective, and I think, like I said, that's his whole journey. I see Spots. What's going on, man? Haven't seen you in a while. Big E, 6 more days. John Taylor, what's up? What's going on, buddy? John Taylor, you guys watch too many live streams. Well, they're not mine. I can guarantee you that. I haven't live streamed in forever. Brandon Rogers, you think Arya would join the Queen's Guard or King's Guard for Jon or Dany, or both, depending on if they both survive? Just feel like Jon wouldn't have been brought back just to die again. That's one of the reasons why I don't think Jon will die. I think Daenerys will be the one to die. I honestly don't think. I think Arya, in terms of Jon and Daenerys, one of them will die. And that's going to be the tragedy of it, right? But I think Jon's going to make it through because I think Jon is the prophesized savior, but I think that represents more than defeating the Night King. Like, I think Daenerys will have an equal hand in defeating the Night King, and I think Jon's going to play a role there. But I think Jon's the one to bring people together and to pick up the pieces and build a better world. And I think that's what we could see. In terms of Arya, she's either gonna travel really far out, where travel west of Westeros. That's what she was thinking. But I honestly don't think Arya is gonna make it through this season. I think she's gonna die because I think she's completed her story, and I think it's been heavily foreshadowed that she is the young at heart, daughter who's not going to make it through, right? In season 1, we see Syrio and her fighting, and I use that as an example actually in one of my videos. I forget which one. But they start fighting and the swords become real sounds, and Ned watches his daughter basically be killed by Syrio. And I think that kind of fades into her character. Also, Melisandre's prophecy, brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, eyes that you'll shut forever. That's foreshadowing to her death, in my opinion. And I think Arya's whole journey was the journey of self-discovery and acceptance, right? She started off with her family and her love for Jon and that whole dynamic, and then she was shaken up. And she went so far as to become faceless, to disassociate herself from her tragic past, right? And we've seen her since becoming faceless that she couldn't do it. She's accepted who she is. She's Arya Stark, and she's back at home in Winterfell. And I think she's done her storyline. I think there's nothing else for Arya to do. People say that she needs to kill Cersei. I disagree. That's not her story. she's done. She's done killing people. She's done being a faceless assassin. I think now it's time for her to be with her family, and that was her whole journey. And I think now that that journey is completed, she's going to die amongst her family or fighting for her family. And I think that's going to be her role. And they're going to be eyes that she shuts forever, right? But yeah, I think she's not going to die as the faceless person. She's going to die as Arya Stark. And I think Cersei's not meant to be killed by Arya. She is meant to be killed by somebody else like Jaime, because that completes Jaime's arc as a character. So that's what I think. I always think of in character arcs. What's the perfect roundabout way to round out their character? So that's what I think with in terms of that. Phyllis Wright says, I think last season will be great, but it won't equal the books. It shows it's a show, not a book. Yeah, so we'll see. I'm hoping that this show is a lot like this season, is like season 6. Season 6, in my opinion, was beautifully done. It was perfectly done. I think season 7 sometimes defied logic, and certain things I was a little irritated about, like they kept stressing on the throne. They're still playing the Game of Thrones. Cersei's taking it over, and they go and capture a white for her. Maybe if I watch it again, I'll like it more, but that kind of irritated me. And then Bran goes back in the past to see that Jon's parents married, and he's a legitimate Targaryen. In my opinion, that should have been a reveal for season 6. Because we already knew that they were together and they had Jon. So why would they just do a reveal on him being legitimate? Why are they putting such a high importance and value on him being a legitimate king? That's what's annoying me. But obviously him being a legitimate king probably ties into him being a legitimate prince that was promised, right? But little things like that irritated me. And in my predictions, I made it really well known. I thought in season 7, Jon was meant to fly a dragon. And I think they're reserving that for this season. And I'm irritated because I feel like they kept. This is my opinion on season 7, right? Season 6 had the Sept of Baelor. They had a lot of events that really. It was an amazing wrap for the story. Like, it was amazing. Season 7, I feel like they're like, oh guys, we want to keep all the characters alive for the finale. We want to keep all the big moments for the finale. And they made season 7 just this empty season just to fill space, and it had no stakes. Like, if I were to do season 7 would be Jon flying a dragon. When he was fighting the Night King and he was left alone, it should have been Rhaegal that came and saved him, not Benjen. And another thing too is Cersei should have been defeated in that season. I think this season should have been reserved for the Night King, and I think last season should have been reserved for Cersei. And but who knows? And I hope they just don't cram everything in this season where it's like, everything at once, reveal after reveal, and you don't even have a moment to catch your breath or experience the drama. So I hope that doesn't happen. Phyllis Wright thinks it's more likely that Sansa heads up the Vale and Arya rebuilds House Stark. That's a possibility. I think Sansa's going to have a big role after. I think Sansa's going to be one of the Starks that makes it. I think she's going to rebuild. What's funny is I think Sansa might keep her home in Winterfell. I think Sansa would be the one to hold Winterfell if Jon isn't around. And I think that's the thing with Jon is if he is alive, he would have to begrudgingly take being king. And he doesn't want that in his life, but he has to do it. And I think Sansa would be that. I think Arya is not going to make it. And I think Bran, I don't know if he's either going to return to the tree or he's going to be dead too. So I really don't know. We'll see what happens. In the end, the part closest Dr. 4 was the Night King all along. Yeah, nice Azor Lowe, nice Westworld Game of Thrones thing. Do you think the Mad King was a Hodor situation? Oh, like Bran going back and whispering in the Mad King's ear, saying burn them all? I don't think at this point them going back to reveal that Bran was responsible for the Night King, or not the Night King, was responsible for the Mad King, really helps the story. It doesn't do anything for the story, so I think that's not what they're going to do. I think that part of history is what it is. The only thing that I think Bran could manipulate at this point is the Night King. That's really it. They have a lot of similarities. They have the same abilities. They share a connection. When Bran went through the Weirwood tree, the Night King saw him there. I think they both share the green seeing ability. That's why the Night King came south now. I don't believe it makes no sense to me that he's coming down for just pure extinction. He's coming down for a reason, and it's the same reason he came down during the fight for the Dawn. He is after something. And I think the Night King only comes south when there's a hero to fight him, and that hero is Ice and Fire, and that's who he's after, maybe. But other than Bran having an effect on anyone but the Night King, I don't think he would do anything with the Mad King. I think at that point, retreading that plot line, it doesn't move the story forward. So that's what I think. Carrie Neves, cool. First time I've ever heard someone mention the connection between the spiral of the Targaryen sigil. Totally makes sense now. I've heard it. Yeah, I was actually going to mention that in my new video that's going to come out this week. In my opinion, I think a lot of Game of Thrones and what George R. R. Martin talks about is, you know, Game of Thrones takes place across a lot of years, right? And during that, there's a lot of stories being told. There's myths, there's religions being formed, right? And I think if you look at a lot of pieces in the present timeline of Game of Thrones, you can really take a glimpse at a lot of past manipulation and figures. Like the Night King always gives that spiral symbol. In the first season, he gave the symbol of the circle with the stick through it. And in the cave drawings in season 7, you see a similar spiral, also a different spiral kind of figure, right? As well as like the Night King has ice beams. He had like 8 beams around where he resurrected the child, right? I think there's a lot of circle imagery, and I think there's a lot of imagery that relates back to Game of Thrones, right? Or the Targaryen line, and the Children of the Forest as well. And I think that's what he's communicating is he's sending the spiral there because he's a green seer, and the Night King is like, where is my child? Where is my prince that was promised, right? And I think that's the whole story. The Night King needs the prince that was promised. And I think that's the only reason why I would say Jon and Dany would have a kid. But if that's not the case, then Jon is the kid. But then that raises the question, why is he coming now? And I think there's a lot of ways to answer that. But yeah, I think those symbols mean, where is my Targaryen kid? Where is my Targaryen prince that was promised, right? And that feeds into the fight for the Dawn too. That's where that makes sense. That's where the myth of Azor Ahai comes from, is, you know, in the present time with religion, people are like, you know, human triumph. We did it. We beat the Night King. We had a savior who pulled a burning sword and fought him off. Whereas no, the actual truth was he had a child that was a Targaryen. He was a flaming sword. He was a weapon, right? And he gave that child as a sacrifice to the Night King to make him stop fighting, right? And he was the peace treaty between the two sides. And that's why the Night King went north, back over the wall, right? And it wasn't Bran the Builder who built the wall. It was the Night King who did it. But over time, it became so construed because humans always want to win. It's to them, it's always their story, right? And I think now the time has come again. We see the symbols. The Night King's coming south again for the prince that was promised. And that's it, right? The prince who was promised isn't a hero by any means. It's something the Night King wants. But it's been misinterpreted over generation after generation. And those symbols now bleed into the Targaryen symbol because that's what founded the house, right? So that's what I think you can look at when you're kind of interpreting history. Donald Duffy, you are amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, Patrick Belanger, thank you, buddy. Hey, love the channel. Thank you, thank you. Phyllis Wright, do you think that they will waste time on how Sam feels about the burning of his father and brother, or focus more on the endgame results? In terms of Sam, I love Sam. He's one of my favorite characters. In terms of him, I don't think they'll really focus on that. I think they might drop it and Sam might get a reaction, but I think that's not Sam's concern, and I think that doesn't really matter to him at this point. I think the only thing with him is Heartsbane. That's his family sword, and I think since he's had such a hard time with Heartsbane, is he's going to be giving that to Jorah, because, you know, they had Sam is not a fighter, and Jorah is, and he's there to fight the White Walkers, and they shared a history. Sam kind of helped him with his grayscale, and I think Sam will be the one to give him Heartsbane. And I think it's telling too, because Heartsbane means it's like sickness, it's pain in the heart, and that represents Jorah's character. And it's funny because I think in the trailers you can see Heartsbane on Jorah, and I honestly, I swear to God, about a year ago I said that Sam was going to give Jorah Heartsbane because it means sickness in the heart, and that's how Jorah feels for Daenerys, and that is Jorah's weapon, right? Jon got Longclaw because that is meant for his character, and Jorah's going to get Heartsbane because that's a reflection of who he is and his character arc. So that's how I feel about it. And by the way, yeah, in terms of Sam, I think he's going to play a big role on, first of all, communication with Jon and understanding how to defeat the Night King. And I hope he plays a huge role because, like I said with Sam, his whole journey basically is becoming a wizard, and that's all he wanted in season 1. He said he wanted to be a wizard, and I think he's going there to study the mythic arts, and that is the one thing where his Valyrian steel chain. I always love the idea. Valyrian steel represents the mythic arts, and I love the idea of Sam taking Heartsbane and taking some Valyrian steel and making his own ring from it, and that would be him kind of saying, you know, F you, Dad. It's not about being Heartsbane. It's about, you know, the mythic arts. And he kind of takes his family sword and makes it into his own and makes his own path. And I think that that's going to be Sam's role. I see spots. Q&A. What will you miss most lost from the book and D&D's adaptation? I just hope we don't miss out on all the lore and the build up on these big reveals, right? I hope that the prophecies aren't all lost, and all I can say is, you know, the adaptation was great. I just hope we don't lose out on the execution. And by the way, guys, we have only about 10 minutes left, and I'm sorry I can't go for longer. I don't have much flexibility tonight, but I promise you we'll be doing a live stream every week, and I'll be able to answer all your questions there as well. So I'm going to fly through them right now. But in terms of questions, unfortunately, I can't really take any more questions after what's been posted because I got to run. I am very sorry. But yeah, it's a very short one. If you guys want a live stream before Game of Thrones, actually, let me know. Maybe I can do a live stream the Sunday before the episode drops, or maybe I could do it Saturday. Let me know. But yeah, going through the questions. Programmer of video games. Do you think Bran is the Night King, or maybe Night King is a relative? Yeah, I said that my one opinion on Bran, in terms of him being the Night King, is I think Bran would warg into the Night King when he was against the tree with the dragon glass about to be stabbed in his heart. I think Bran could warg into him and be created and fused in with the Night King. And that would give him the ability to resurrect the dead because he's warging, right? It gives him all those abilities, and it gives you kind of a chess piece to defeat the Night King, because if you kill Bran, it kills the abilities of the Night King, right? So I think it can create some interesting plot devices there. Donald Duffy, do you think the old gods and R'hllor have a connection? I feel all different gods and religions, and those two have the strongest bond. I think all the gods are connected to Bran. I think the God's Eye is the mantle of God. I think whoever sits under that tree is the God. And I think R'hllor and the old gods are just an interpretation. I always thought that, and this is a unique idea, who knows, but Jon being resurrected from the dead, it's just him being warged into, right? That could be an interpretation. I don't know if I necessarily like it, but I like the idea of all the gods being founded under something that's underground. You know, all the gods in the sky are actually a person, an actual being who is underground. And I think that's kind of a good, I think it speaks a lot to, you know, religion and that whole aspect of it, which I think is really interesting. Would I do a review on Amazon's Lord of the Rings series? Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I've never been a big Lord of the Rings fan. I don't know why. It never really caught on with me, but I know after Game of Thrones, I'm going to need to find something, right? So I'm open to suggestions. Lucid Horizon. Hey, Max. Good to see you. Good to see you too. I can't stay, but I wanted to stop in and say hi. We missed you. Can't wait to see what you got for us this season. Thank you so much. Well, I told everyone earlier in the chat that I got a lot planned. I'll probably be doing, you know what, I really like these live streams, so I'll probably be doing one before the first episode. Probably get another one done. I think that would be fun. So hopefully you can come by during that one. Donald Duffy, or the prequel of the HBO series in the making. Yes, 100%. The Game of Thrones prequel that's going to come out, I'm going to do it. To be honest with you, I'm not happy about it. I want them to do a prequel, but I don't like what they picked because they're doing The Long Night. And that pisses me off because it means that this season of Game of Thrones, this series of Game of Thrones, stands on its own. And in my opinion, you can't defeat the Night King and you can't conclude this story unless you reflect on The Long Night and discover what that was. And they won't do that now because they don't want to reveal it and spoil the Long Night series. So I'm a little irritated about that. I think they should have picked another one and they should have explored the Long Night. They should have explored the Long Night in God damn it, in this season. I think that I would have loved Robert's Rebellion. I know that they address it a lot in the show, but I would have loved to see the old actors or the actors, the younger actors kind of take on that role. I would have loved that. Kylie Wilson, what's going on? Phyllis Wright, after the Lord of the Rings series, Pride and Prejudice series on Wuthering Heights. You know what's funny is I don't know any of these shows, so I'm going to definitely have to do my research. Azora Lowe, is Benjen still roaming around? I think they made it pretty clear that he was dead. I feel like they just sacrificed his character for no reason. I don't like the way they ended his character and how that was handled. I think he should have played a better role. And I think the impact of him coming and saving John's life, I think it would have been so much more significant if it was Rhaegal and not Benjen. I would have much preferred to see the dragon save him that's named after his father and seeing the first time John fly a dragon. I think that would have been much more impactful. And I think they should have held Benjen to the next season or this season. Programmer of video games. It can't be a coincidence that Brandon the Night King looks similar. I don't know if I would base it on looks. I think that might just be a coincidence, and they also casted two different people, right? It could be, but in terms of what I think on if there is any similarity between Bran and the Night King, it's a mental connection, not a physical connection. I see spots. Oh, the same adaptation. Oh, I see spots talking about all those adaptions that I could do on the show. Not sure. I need to do my research and check out what kind of shows I can do. John Taylor, what's going on? Kylie Wilson, what's going on? If he's like me, he does a Lord of the Rings. You guys are all talking about Lord of the Rings here. I know. Oh, Mikey G. I know this is tinfoil. But with the North in need of fighters, any chance Bran alters the past to give Jaime back his sword hand? Maybe he loses the non-sword hand instead. No. I appreciate the tinfoilness, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that just opens a huge can of worms that you don't want for the show. He could have went back and done so many other things, right? I think it's so much more impactful instead of seeing Bran going back and fixing the past. I think it would be so much more entertaining to see Jaime come to terms with it and deal with it, right? I would much rather see Jaime kick ass with his left hand because he's learned and developed it, or maybe see Jaime struggle fighting because he's known as the Kingslayer and he's having a hard time coming to terms with not being the strongest person anymore. And he has to take on the mantle of a commander, which we probably see him doing on the battlements of Winterfell, right? I just think that that's such an important, humbling role in Jaime's character that I think it must stay, and I think it needs to stay. Kylie Wilson, season 6 was by far the best. I totally agree. Season 6 was unbelievable. I loved it. Winds of Winter is my favorite episode, or a great episode. I agree. Those are my two favorite episodes. Battle of the Bastards and Winds of Winter are my two favorite episodes ever. Even season 7. Season 7 doesn't have an episode that comes close to episode 9 and episode 10 of season 6. Those were by far the best episodes to me ever. It had the drama and it had the action, and I'm excited because Miguel Sapochnik, the same director, is doing the same thing with 2 episodes in this show. And believe it or not, he actually added a lot to those 2 episodes to make them what they were. So kudos to him, and I'm excited that he's going to be directing the other 2. Phyllis Wright, totally agree. Lord of the Rings. Gendry can run like a mofo. He can. That was another part that irritated me. They just made him run. So annoying. Finesse, what's going on? I agree about Cersei being defeated last season, but George R. R. Martin said that the big bad was actually Cersei. So I guess the major plot point, that would really suck. I hope that that's not the case. The programmer of video games. One of Brand's visions is that as a dragon flying over King's Landing. What if that's the Night King flying to King's Landing, or maybe Daenerys? I think it's Daenerys. I always thought Daenerys, you know, she's a good character and good at heart, but I think, like in season 7, she was so close to burning King's Landing to the ground, and I think she's going to be pushed to a point where she has to do that for the good of the realm, and she would have to go in there. And we see Daenerys walk up to the throne room, and the throne is covered in snow, and there's a giant hole in the roof. I think that's Daenerys. I think she was pushed to the point with Cersei that she had to go and kill her immediately. And I think that put her in a compromising position because people wouldn't want to follow her because of her destructive nature and them looking at her father. And I think that would be the tragedy of Daenerys, is that she was just trying to do what's right. But in doing so, she politically screwed herself. So if anything, I hope that it's Daenerys, but it could very much be the Night King. Like I said, I think the battle to defeat the Night King probably will take place at King's Landing because everyone's just going to keep retreating and retreating. Do you think this is probably going to be the last question I take? Do you think Dany loses Drogon during the battle for Winterfell, leaving Jon as the only dragon rider? Could Bran's vision be Jon riding Brakel over King's Landing? I don't know. It's possible. I think Daenerys is going to be with her dragons for the majority of the time. I don't think that she's going to lose her dragons in that sense. I think Daenerys loses her dragons when she either dies or kind of the end of her arc. I think we're always going to see her attached to the dragon. And I think Jon, even though he has the ability to fly it, will try not to. I feel like he's kind of disassociating himself as a Targaryen. And I think that's what makes him a special character. I'll probably keep it. Sorry, I'm just going to keep scamming through these guys because I got to go. Really like the idea about the gods being the one under the god's eye. I'm telling you, I felt like that for a while, and to me it makes sense. The god of everything, of the seven, of R'hllor, of the old gods, it's the guy sitting under the god's eye, and I think that would be the perfect wrap up of everything. And that kind of is the magic of the show. It's a special child who is born and goes to the god's eye. Quickly scamming. Can we have the hair longer, please? That's funny. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I really got to go right now. It's 9 o'clock. Unfortunately, I'm only able to go an hour. So thank you so much, everyone, for all of your questions. If you have any more questions, put it in the comment section down below. Honestly, I'm going to be launching. I'm probably going to do another chat Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll announce it. I don't know, but this was a lot of fun. There's a lot more to talk about. So just drop a bunch of questions. And thank you guys so much. It was great to see all you guys again. So yeah, all I can say is, I'll be back with a lot of coverage of Game of Thrones throughout the weeks, so you can look forward to that. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Take care.